Welcome everyone to NASW California Disabilities Council Fireside Chat on Inclusive Digital Accessibility with the co-founder of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, Joe Devon. My name is Helene Diamond. I am the Council Chair of the NASW California Disabilities Council. We are all so thrilled to have you join us today. If you're watching live now with us, please feel free to participate by writing comments or questions in the chat box. You can also use the Q&A function to ask questions. There will be a Q&A portion of the event at the very end. And then before we get started, I'm going to share a little bit about our council. Sorry, having a little tech issue there. As you can see on the screen, our mission is to provide an inclusive space for social workers of all abilities to network and collectively address disability-related concerns through education, resources, peer support, and advocacy. The term disability is all-inclusive. It includes those that are visible, invisible, physical, sensory, emotional, and or neurodiverse. We have monthly council meetings that all are welcome to join, including members of NASW, those who are non-members, and allies. Our next council meeting is Thursday, May 16th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. There is a QR code on the screen that you can use to register for the event. Also in the chat box, there'll be a link that you can use. If you want to get more information about our council, or you want to get involved even, feel free to contact us at NASW-CA Disabilities Council at gmail.com. That'll be in the chat box as well. You can also go to Facebook and you can search us, NASW California Chapter Disabilities Council. We would love to hear from you. So not to waste any more time, so we do want to get started. Cindy Chen, a fellow council member, and our public relations officer will be our moderator today, and she will now take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to get started, and I want to introduce, our speaker and, of course, our members that are joining us today. So let's welcome Joe Devon. He is a seasoned tech entrepreneur and public speaker who has consistently been at the forefront of technological innovation. His work has ranged from contributing to the then nascent backbone of the internet to designing secure, robust, and scalable voting systems for high profile reality shows. However, Joe's true passion lie in advocating for accessibility as an essential aspect of digital product development. As a co-founder and chair of the Global Accessibility Awareness Day GAAD Foundation, Joe is dedicated to raising awareness about the importance of creating inclusive digital experiences. He collaborates with forward thinking organizations to modernize their approach to accessibility and implement cutting edge initiatives that harness artificial intelligence to streamline their workflows. All right, and the supporting speakers from the NASW California Chapter Disabilities Council, we have Alex Elliott, MSW. He is a council member that serves as the commissioner on the Santa Monica Disabilities Commission. He began his career implementing technology solutions to support disaster relief efforts. He is passionate about the ability of assistive technologists to improve the well-being of everybody, including people with disabilities. We have Helene Diamond, MSW, our council founder and chair. Helene uses the wheelchair and other assistive technology in her professional and personal life. We have Joseph Burton, ASW. He is our council vice chair. Joseph is the director and founder of Hearts for Sight Foundation, a nonprofit serving the health and wellness needs of people living with vision loss. He uses visual assistance technology. We also have Victor G, LCSW. He is our council member. Victor is a clinical social worker and assistive technology user and advocate. All right, let's get started. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Cindy. Thank you for all those nice intros.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So I like to kind of just get started and just kind of kick off our first question. What is Global Accessibility Awareness Day?
Global Accessibility Awareness Day, or GAD as we call it in the disability community, is a day to get people that build digital products aware of the importance of making it work for people with disabilities. So a lot of people don't know that there is a variety of assistive technologies that people use. Most commonly, people will talk about screen readers for users who are blind. They cannot use a mouse, obviously, if you can't see the pointer. So there's a lot of use of keyboard, but there's also a screen reader that speaks out the page to the user. But there are a wide variety of assistive technologies, including captions, and closed captions can be used not only by people who are deaf or hard of hearing, but also if you're older, if you speak a different language, it can be very helpful. And then you have switch devices. There's a wide variety. You have Braille displays for people who are Braille users. There's just a very wide variety. And essentially, when you're building a website or a mobile app, if you don't test with these users, you're very often going to make your product not work for a wide variety of users. So the whole purpose of this is to grow the awareness so that we build digital products better.
Thank you. So, Joe, why does assistive technology matter?
Essentially, it's what I'm saying. If you're arriving, let's say, for example, you are blind and you want to be able to book a restaurant. And I have a lot of friends that are blind, and they'll go into a restaurant and they want to be able to hear the menu spoken to them. And if you create a PDF of like if you take a picture of your menu and then you don't provide alternative text that can be read by a screen reader, then you won't know what the menu is. And then another thing is that if you're going into a restaurant and you want to use Uber in order to leave the restaurant, I love to use this example because it just reminded me of a situation. I was in a bad part of town. We were doing a GAD party essentially, and there were a lot of users there that were blind, that were deaf, that had a variety of disabilities. Everybody got on their Uber, and the Uber arrives, picks them up, and you're able, because of the accessibility, you're able to know where the taxi is, when it's arriving. It knows where you are, and it parks right in front of you, which was a lot harder before the days of something like Uber. But what happens if they arrive to the restaurant in their Uber and then they're in a bad part of town and Uber updates their software and they don't test it for accessibility? All of a sudden, you could be stuck in a bad side of town and you're unable to order your Uber. I just saw this in front of me where we were in that bad part of town. And I said, hey, would you like me to stick around? And they said, no. And I thought, oh, wow. So if God forbid Uber wasn't working, it could really put them in a difficult situation. So this is just an example, but I think you can imagine lots of others.
Okay, so Joe, can you kind of describe to us what is accessibility technology versus assistive technology?
Well, I wouldn't say that the two are that different, but also I'm wondering, are we going to have the other panelists also weigh in because they may have something to add here?
Sure. Please do chime in, other panelists.
This is Alex Elliott. I'm wearing a white sweater, glasses, and I mean, my glasses I wear every day. I use all sorts of assistive technology, and I have a broad definition. It's just anything that's helpful. But over the last couple years, there's just been an explosion of just helpful features. Every year when there's an update to my phone, my iPhone, there like live captions come out or just some kind of groundbreaking feature. The other day, Llama 3 came out, and now we have these glasses with AI built into them. Um, and just something I've noticed is just not a lot of people are aware of this. So there's all this, there's kind of one gap. I'm really hoping that events like what we're doing right now are just making people more aware, social workers aware of the things that exist, and then encouraging the next generation to build more awesome stuff. But just closing the gap of what's available and what people are adopting. I'm always surprised when I'll bring up an assistive technology or accessible feature, and people are like, "Oh, I never heard of that." And I'm like, "Yeah, just go to settings, accessibility, turn it on. Now you have live captions. Now you just went from not being able to access something to being able to access something." And that's just one example.
Thank you, Alex. I like to just kind of ask the other panelists, why do you think assistive technology matter?
I'll add the kind of what Alex was even sharing is that a lot of people actually benefit from accessibility features. I have mobility limitations. I live in mobility, and I use a lot of accessibility features such as the voice to text feature. And I know that that a lot of people don't have any issues at all use that because it's convenient. It makes you more efficient, makes you more productive. So just having these accessibility features that help those who really need them actually helps a lot of people, maybe most everybody.
And this is Victor. I have golden skin and black hair, and I'm wearing a gray shirt today. I am, excited that this is a social work event because I think social workers, have a very unique perspective and angle when it comes to accessibility because we, have a lot of models that overlap with assistive technology such as person environment, human behavior, and the social environment, which, supports the social model of disability. Where disability is an incongruence between an individual's traits and their environments. And so for me, assistive technology, is a tool to help bridge a person's traits and their respective environments. And that changes from place to place and culture to culture. And in terms of the impact that that has and the significance that has, it's so huge because it can be life and death. If we're talking about, for example, someone with serious medical conditions who needs to know how to take their medications or needs to be able to follow an after visit summary instruction from their doctor's office after they're discharged from a hospital, something as simple as having real text, in a document could be life and death in certain situations.
Thank you. So Joe, I'd like to kind of follow up with what we were kind of discussing earlier. So can you kind of give us an example or a definition of what is accessibility versus assistive technology?
I mean, to me, I would say that accessibility is simply the process of making your products accessible to a wide audience. And in particular, you are often thinking about assistive technology. So something like a Braille display, so that somebody that is blind and is a Braille reader could actually feel the text on the screen with a refreshable Braille display. That's an assistive technology. A screen reader is an assistive technology. You have these switches. So Stephen Hawking, he had a switch that he could just use his cheek to push. You also have these straw sip and puff straws that people use, or they'll use their tongue in order to maneuver around the screen. Those are all assistive technologies. But then accessibility, I'd say, goes, and I thank you for that question because I didn't actually think about it until you asked that. And in 13 years of doing this, no one has ever asked for the difference. So I never really thought about it as being different, but it is because when you think about, let's say, people that have cognitive disabilities, let's say that you have a website that is medically related and that you have a lot of patients who might have cognitive disabilities, you want to make sure that the language that you are using is speaking to the audience that you have in front of you. And there's no assistive technology there, but there is an accessibility function to make sure that your language works for this group of people.
Thank you, Joe. So now I want to kind of open this up to, all of our panelists again. How do you use either, accessible technology or assistive technology to enhance your personal or professional life?
Kick this one off. Every day I use it for everything. The biggest one is my smartphone. I use like the one-handed keyboard. That's a little bit more efficient for me. And also I use accessible features that if I was like a vocational rehabilitation expert, I might not recommend, but I use the live captionings more than everything. When I was in school, I would use Kurzweil that did it read your textbooks out loud. So when I was stuck on the 405 freeway, I would listen to my social work books or for, preparing for exams. So I just use it all the time. And then also, advanced prosthetics. I have the Microsoft adaptive buttons. So that allows me to take a break from using the keyboard. When I used to play video games more, I had the Microsoft adaptive controller. So I just use it all the time.
Thank you, Alex. And that's actually interesting. I mean, even just thinking about it, even like an audiobook sounds like a assistive device, that we don't think about, that we use a lot, actually. Are there any other panelists that'd like to chime in?
Yeah, this is Joseph. I am Afro-Latino wearing a black shirt, black glasses, and I'm visually impaired. And a device that I use quite often are my voiceover features, whether that's on my computer, my iPad, my phone. And though I am low vision and still have access to, some usable vision that helps me read text, by the end of the day, my eyes can get completely exhausted, which is why it's so important for me to have access to these voiceover features, because I can still interface with my computer, my devices, and still maintain a level of productivity because I have these devices with these built-in accessibility features in them. My phone is a wonderful tool. And I love how the Apple products have these built-in accessibility features, and they're always making updates. One of the built-in accessibility features that I have is a magnifier. So there are times where things like text are just so completely small, and I don't have time to bring out a CCTV or find one of my magnifiers. So I can just simply go onto my phone, pull up my magnification device, and read print like on a medicine bottle, or print on a bank statement, or just any type of information that is unlegible for me because of my limited vision. My phone can present that opportunity for me to interface with that text. So there's just so many different things that are out there, but I appreciate Apple because they have accessibility in mind within all of their products, and I certainly benefit from them greatly.
And this is Victor. Just to add on to that, I think, speaking broadly, how we as a community use assistive technology is constantly changing, because the technology is constantly changing. A couple years back, KNFB readers were a huge thing in the blind and low vision community. Nowadays, nobody's talking about KNFB. Nowadays, actually, shout out to Joseph and, about the iPhone. You could take a picture now. They're now kind of processing text in photos. which is pretty incredible. I mean, that's stuff that you would pay $100 for, a decade ago. And in terms of how I like to use it, assistive technology, I typically like to keep things simple. I mean, there's devices like a portable CCTV, which you can use to spot read, but like Joseph said, like you can do that on your phone nowadays. You can even go as easy as like a little bar magnifier to just place on, physical paper items. And something as simple as lighting, I think, is really important that a lot of people take for granted. So specialized lighting is definitely one of those things that I benefit a lot from.
Thank you. So anybody else want to chime in before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, I can share some. So with my limited mobility, I actually use my cell phone, my iPhone, for most things people use a computer for. It's a lot more convenient for me because it's lightweight. And I use the assistive touch accessibility feature, which allows me to use simple taps and an icon instead of having to do things like pushing two buttons at the same time or having to shake the phone, doing things that require more physical strength and dexterity. I can do with just a simple touch. So that helps me immensely. This is not really an accessible device, but I use it as such. With the iPad, I use the first generation iPad pencil. It's very, very long, and it helps me to reach the screen really easily. I was actually very disappointed when the newer model is incredibly shorter because the length of the pencil really helped me to reach all parts of the surface. So like Joe had mentioned, sometimes updates become less accessible than the original.
Thank you, Helene. Okay, so Joe, I'd like to move on to our next question. What are your thoughts on ways to close the digital divide for people with disabilities?
This is a difficult question because we can only do what we can do. We don't have the power to force other organizations. We might have the power to inspire people, and I've always focused on inspiration and try to learn. But I'm in an interesting position because year after year, I get invited to speak, and as much as GAD is a public event, we have a social media reach of over 220 million people. This is a figure we tracked the first 5-6 years, and we stopped tracking because that was just so high. We couldn't even imagine it at that point. But as many events as there are globally to the public, there are at least as many events internal at these corporations. And I'm invited to speak about GAD and accessibility. And what I finally have realized this year is that I'm not being invited to speak as an expert on accessibility. I'm not being invited to teach people about accessibility because there are thousands of people that can do that. But what I'm invited for is that the accessibility professionals at these companies all understand intuitively, and because it typically will affect them or someone in their family, that there's a great business case to be made for accessibility, and that the finance people who typically, I wouldn't say typically, but I'll say there are some finance people that only care about the numbers, and then there's some people that are moved by the empathy. But the people that care about the numbers really control the budget at the end of the day. And I finally understanding that all of these invitations are because all of the really big brands that are good at communication and at the branding, they all have taken on this event. Nike, according to Steve Jobs, is one of the best communicators when it comes to brand. They made a commercial over this. And all these people are inviting me in because they want to know, how did you write a blog post that the vision matters to the companies that are branding? And what I realized is, if in the age of the internet, you take a brand that is more focused on being less expensive, that's fine for them. But the internet forced the brands that are premium to compete on price with brands that are focused on lower price. And you all probably have noticed year after year that corporation after corporation is trying to make things cheaper. They want to not reply to you when you're reaching support. They don't want you to speak to a human being. When you want to buy a product, it's easy and you can do it online. When you want to get rid of a product, you can't do it. You have to try and find somebody and wait 2 hours in line to do it. And all of this is because they're trying to make things cheaper. And the message that I'm trying to share, and sorry, this is a little long-winded answer to you or running around to get to the point, that sharing that to brands, the most vulnerable customer you have is your most valuable customer. Because if you are going into a hotel, for example, you care that your baby, that your grandma, that your friend who is in a wheelchair, that your father, like a friend of mine who's a quadriplegic, you care that they're walking into a walk-in shower and they're able to, that it matches what was on the website, that the accessible room is there, that there's a Hoyer lift that can take them from the wheelchair to the bed. All of these things are the most important thing to you. And if you want to have any kind of margin, as opposed to doing a race to the bottom cheapest price, you're going to do that by connecting with your audience who is most vulnerable, because then you're going to have the most loyal people that are going to talk about you on social media. So this is what I've learned, and I'm starting to speak about this year. And I think that once they understand the business case, you're going to see a lot more businesses that are going to focus on this, and it will allow them to have a better margin, but we're going to have a better experience.
Thank you,
Because
Joe.
it's cool to be accessible.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So this kind of leads us to a question actually from our audience. So are there companies or establishments that has done a good job at developing this type of technology?
Thank you for that question, Yvette. And hi, Yvette, who is a member of your association and is a friend of mine, as a matter of fact. Unfortunately, I'm not going to answer your question directly, because if I highlight one brand and not another brand, I think it would sort of be unfair and make people feel a little uncomfortable, though some of the panelists did answer that question, sort of. But I would invite them in their experience to share what they feel.
Thank you, Joe. And I know, we mentioned maybe one or two brand names. Do we have any other panelists that like to share maybe, a company or establishment that you find very helpful, let's just say?
I can answer that kind of indirectly as well, but I just think the products I use every day are they're Microsoft. So Windows, they have new accessibility features every year. Apple, so if I'm using an iPhone or Mac OS, checking the accessibility features, they grow every year. Android devices, so every time there's an update to Android, there seems to be new things. And then we're starting to see Meta with their glasses and wearables and VR incorporating. So I think we're starting to see all the big companies invest in this and add to it every year. And then I think it's our job as social workers to make people aware of these features and just sharing them like we do in our council meetings. And then, sharing it as we present in the communities. I like to make one-pagers with just hyperlinks to things I think are cool. But that's one idea.
That's actually a good idea, Alex. Anyone else like to share?
I guess, this is Victor, and the only thing I would add to, the beautiful comments that have preceded mine is that, the quote unquote good companies or establishments out there are the ones that realize we're never going to fully close this gap, and it's an ongoing process, and they don't become complacent. Like Aline was mentioning earlier, like updates can turn out for the worse. And I what I appreciate, about establishments and companies that do a good job of it is there's almost this lens of cultural humility, of this kind of ongoing process of introspecting about their product and fostering more empathy for how their product relates to the experience of persons with disabilities, and their willingness to engage with the disability community on that, not just once, not just to put out a little PR statement, but to constantly improve their services.
Thank you.
And
Anyone else?
I'd like to add kind of a little bit more too, because I think the original question was around the digital divide, and we know people with disabilities 3 times more likely not to have a device, not have broadband. So I know the state has like a broadband for all effort at the state level, so hopefully that'll trickle down to closing that gap. It's also being aware of low price internet devices and broadband service. There was the Affordable Connectivity Program that's sunsetting, so hopefully there'll be more programs or things like that in the pipeline. Um, and then again, some people are not aware of the great programs that exist to get free and low cost devices. So some people are not aware that there's $30 a month broadband programs and they're paying 70. So again, it's our role to make people or help people get one click away from these resources in our networks.
Yes, Alex, thank you for bringing that up. And I think a lot of times we kind of forget. I mean, even for me, I use a lot of assistive device. They're very expensive. If we don't know any better, speech to text programs are very, very pricey, for you to be able to work. There's a cost to everything. So it is important to kind of maybe shine more light on what is available out there. So, Joe, let me kind of lead you into this one then. So, how can we get more people with disabilities to be more involved in developing the next generation of technology?
I mean, again, that's the entire purpose of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, is to get people to pay more attention, to hire people with disabilities. You're going to get, if you hire a diverse group of people, you're going to hear different perspectives, and you are going to really create a much better product. And I don't care if it is digital or not. One thing that I noticed from my old company, I hired people with a variety of disabilities, and people that are blind are very often great at doing spell check, because it reads out the page to you. You cannot skip over words. You're not skimming over words. You hear every word, and if the word is mispronounced, you know it. So I love getting that check from people, and so all we can do is really encourage people to hire a diverse group of people, including people with disabilities. And a lot of people talk about DEI, but how are you going to have diversity if you're not including people with disabilities in whatever you do?
Absolutely. I think this is something I always ask, right? Like when I went to explore like a new technology or assistive device, I'm like, really, who actually designed this? You're right. Okay. So how can social workers in related fields be more inclusive, or maybe adopt more inclusive strategies in their professional work?
I'm going to let somebody else take that, so I don't take all the all the questions. And there's probably people on the panel that have a little bit more expertise as well in social work.
This is Joseph. I can speak a little bit to that regards to the work that I do with serving the blind and visually impaired. As we've mentioned, there's new technology coming out every single year, and I make an effort every year to go to assistive technology conferences, one being the CSUN conference down here in the Anaheim area. And the one thing that I appreciate about going to these places, that sure, not all the products or services that are being offered now may not benefit me, but they are going to benefit the people that I work with. And just having an awareness that There's services, there's programs, there's tools, there's resources out there for my clients. It is my responsibility. It's my job, or I take on the responsibility to make sure that I have that awareness so that I can share with my clients, hey, did you know about this? You're sharing with me that you have this struggle with navigating, digital information. Well, did you know about these resources, these tools? So to be able to empower other people and expand their horizons, it's empowering for them, but it's our responsibility as social workers to be made aware of them so that we can bridge that gap for our clients.
Thank you, Joseph. Anyone else?
I think, sure, I'll give one example from just about an hour ago, is just having this event and working with NASW on the setup. I think there's some hesitation to have these types of events that are fully inclusive because doing it the first time is anxiety provoking. It's complex to set up the cart captioner, the multiple interpreters, getting the settings right, making sure the audio visual works. So, just getting the 30 minutes and working with us and being patient and jumping off and on, creating spaces to fail, because sometimes you have to mess up to get it right. So just that 20 minutes of failing an hour ago, now NASW knows how to do this.
I want to add to that, Alex, as well, that something that happens in the accessibility space, but in a lot of spaces, is there isn't a lot of, how should I say, sometimes there isn't enough empathy for people that are just starting out and trying, right? And a lot of people are scared that they're going to be shouted down. And so if you want to include more people in doing this, don't shame them if they don't get it right. Just encourage them, and if they're making an effort, by all means, please call out that thank you for making that effort, and we appreciate you, and we'll guide you along. A mistake is okay. I certainly was fearful when I first got involved in this community. I mean, I wrote a blog post, and then all of a sudden I was in a community that I did not understand at first, but my co-founder, Jennison Asuncion, was very helpful. He helped me avoid a lot of pitfalls. But that's something that I try to share to people. Please, embrace people, help them understand what they do. If they could do something better, how they could do it better, but with grace. And this is an example, because I love this panel. Like, you're all wonderful people, and you should all have the opportunity to share on a webinar like this all of your experiences. And if we don't go out of our way, get out of our comfort zone a little bit, and risk failure. I've done many events where we hired interpreters, we had ASL, we had captions, the captions failed, or the captions went out too quickly. There was all kind of disasters happening. And while there were one or two people who might give us a hard time, for the most part, people understood we're doing our best, and we really tried to make the event inclusive.
Thank you, Jill and Alex. I think that's very important. I think, like you say, just even through our council, I've been learning about so many different types of disabilities, what kind of support may be needed. And a lot of times we're so quick to jump on criticizing or saying you're not being supportive. But at the same time, I also want to honor that, because we have been so suppressed, so misunderstood for so long, and it is difficult, right? We want people to understand us, but I like that you encourage us to learn from each other. Before we move on, anyone else from the panel that like to kind of just chime in?
Sure. This is Victor. Just to really echo what Alex and Joe said, I think that growth mindset is really important. That willingness to embrace and celebrate failure and just have a good laugh about it in hindsight, and kind of look at things constructively in the present moving forward. And since we're having a social work specific focus, for social workers, when you're doing your biocycle socials, you should really be assessing for disability and access needs. Oftentimes this is glanced over in what we in social work call the generalist intervention model. And I just encourage social workers to really integrate that as a critical piece of the generalist intervention model, and just maintain that that lens of cultural humility. It's an ongoing process, constantly having to check yourself, your own privileges, social location in relation to your clients and your community.
I
Thank
love,
you.
sorry. I
Oh,
love all that's been said. I'll just chime in too. I think be curious, be interested, ask questions, go to events like this, opportunities to learn more about what's out there, what's available, and ways that you can help make your workspace more accessible, more inclusive. If you are if you are a clinical therapist, you can consider, for those who may have limited mobility, you can consider using mobile applications to use with clients for in-session or between session activities that normally require someone to use a pencil or pen and write things down. They can instead use the phone application or even our computer to fill out surveys or to track the mood, activities, you name it. There are so many applications that are available that you can incorporate into your practice.
thank you. And I also
And
want to kind of just ask while we're on this topic, how do we, I mean, we want to normalize, right, using these type of support. How do we verbalize? I know a lot of us struggle with, how do we communicate to, like, let's say an employer, what would be beneficial for us to thrive?
I mean, I think that's very personal, and I think it's really hard to go in and prescribe to somebody that you should do X, Y, Z. I know one person who was working at uh, an accessibility company who was colorblind and did not disclose to anybody. And even though this person knew that they would not be judged at that company, they felt that doing so might taint them as a designer that is colorblind. People won't want to hire that person. And you have to honor that there are reasons sometimes that people don't want to disclose, or they just don't feel comfortable, or they don't feel comfortable yet. So we have to honor that. But at the same time, I would just say that people that are on the fence, I would encourage you, there's a lot that people can learn, and a lot of people would be open to hearing what kind of needs you might have, and it will not only help you, but it will help others. My friend Haben Gurma, who some of you may have heard of, she has a book called Haben or Haben, depending how you pronounce it. She is the first deafblind graduate of Harvard Law School, and she is deafblind, and she would go into the to her school's cafeteria, and the owner of the cafeteria really discouraged her, mistreated her, and she needed to have a Braille menu in order to be able to see what was there, and wanted to be able to go on the website and see it earlier. But because the owner treated her so poorly, that she tried to figure out what to do and then threatened to sue him. And then all of a sudden he created Braille menus. And then in future years, other students that came after her were able to do it. And she was so inspired by the fact that she thought that this helped other people that came after her. She said, okay, I'm going to get a law degree because that's going to give me the power to make a big difference. And she's an incredible person. Her keynote is fantastic. And that's just an example of where you can take some inspiration. But again, it's not for any of us to pressure anyone else to say, okay, I'm going to disclose.
Thank you, Jill. That just, if not me, then who kind of story. I love it. So I know we have a question from the audience, but I like to wait until the end so we can all kind of process that. There is another question I like to ask. What do you think is the significance of the Justice Department's revision to the Title II of the ADA regarding requirements of accessibility of web content and mobile applications?
I'm going to speak to that generally, and I saw Alex unmute, so hopefully he'll give a more intelligent answer. I'm not a lawyer. I do know that we've been waiting for decades now for the Department of Justice to clarify the guidelines and say, okay, this is how you comply. The Americans with Disabilities Act was created in the 90s before we had ubiquitous smartphones and things like that, and even websites. So it didn't call out digital accessibility specifically. This was left up to the courts, who typically would say that the ADA applies to digital technology, but there was still that lack of guidance. And so this guidance is really important. However, I've been reading friends who are civil rights attorneys, their blogs, and honestly, I couldn't make heads or tails of the actual language that is being proposed. I don't think it was passed yet. So it's not being a lawyer, I don't understand well enough the details of how it's being passed, but the fact that this is pushing forward is a really important and great thing.
And actually, when we crafted these questions, there's been another major announcement, the updates to Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. This, I believe it was Tuesday, which also sets the web content accessibility guidelines as the standard. I mean, I'll speak hopefully about it, is I think now, as we talk about moving left, designers and developers, that's going to be a requirement when they build their, their MVPs or their prototypes. They're going to think about it at the beginning, because it's going to, be encoded as a requirement. So I'm hopeful about that. And the earlier you think about accessibility features, the better they are. And it's actually probably way less expensive, because it's much easier to build something accessible than to retrofit it at the end. So, and hopefully it'll get more people into the field thinking about it. And it'll retrain some people, because now they'll have to have the skills. So it'll upskill a lot of existing developers and people in this field as well.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes. So I'd like to kind of just ask you, Joe, how can people get involved with the GAD Foundation?
Well, first of all, the website of the day is accessibility.day. So I'm not going to spell out accessibility, but it's accessibility.day. And then the GAD Foundation is GAAD.foundation. And on the GAD Foundation, everybody in a nonprofit knows you always accept donations. So if someone out there has an extra $1 million lying free, or $5, everything is appreciated. But there's also a place to volunteer, and you can get in touch with us through a form there in order to volunteer. But I'd also say it doesn't have to be through the foundation. If you just go to your website or your company's website and you just try to use a keyboard and not a mouse. There's also a page also on the accessibility.day website that says how to participate. And under there, it explains some methods that you can use to test the website for accessibility. So just see how you or your employer's website performs, and then be an ally and an advocate in your organization and try and encourage folks to pay attention to this issue. And I think that would be a really wonderful start.
Thank you, Joe. So I think what we will do, Joseph, is can we probably list out, I know we have a lot of links that were posted, but unfortunately it's only shared amongst the panelists. So we're gonna make it for general to see, and then that way we can also include Joe's website to kind of, you know, for everybody to see. And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to kind of read the question. So we do have a question, and I know this is more individualized, so I like to kind of just see if we can make it more general so everybody can kind of in a way kind of see if they can relate in a way, or maybe just to provide some support. So basically this question is about I guess it's more like, how can an employer accommodate like a disability that requires this person to travel, right? And I know like we talked about how do I say that? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to see how I can kind of make this more general. And Nancy, by the way, we would like to support you further if you like to kind of reach out to us, and maybe you can come into one of our groups, and then we can definitely support you a little more. But this one is, I guess, Joe or anybody on the panel, how would you what would you say to maybe help with like accommodating like a mobile disability, or how can an employer accommodate somebody that recently became disabled and may need additional support as far as assistive technology type of, I hope that makes sense. Or can somebody?
Can I chime in on this one really quickly?
Sure.
Okay, this is
Thank you.
Joseph. I think we talk about disabilities and, sometimes we can generalize it, but every single person living with a disability is an individual. And as individuals, we have different needs. And a lot of times when we are newly adjusting or new to our disability, we don't know what type of services, what type of accommodations are out there. So we'll drop a link in the chat. It's JAN, Job Accommodation Network. It has a list of all different types of disabilities on there. And there's different types of accommodations that you as an individual can advocate for, or if you have an employer, they could also learn about the disability and how they as an employer could be more accommodating for that employee. So I strongly encourage folks, if you have any challenges with accessing reasonable accommodations at your places of work, or if you have clients who are struggling with advocating for accommodations at their workplaces, to send them over to JAN, Job Accommodation Network, so that they can learn a little bit more about what is possible for them as individuals.
Thank you, Joseph. We needed that. Do we have any other suggestions or any feedback for Nancy? Okay, so here's a cool one from Alex. What are your favorite adaptive cooking tools?
I can chime in. I like the Nork. It's a knife fork for cutting stuff. One utensil. That's a good one. Very practical. Buy like a 4-pack off your favorite shopping site.
That is awesome. I'm all about adaptive tools. Mine is called Adaptee knife. It's literally like a knife, and the handle is shaped upwards. So instead of slicing this way, I'll hold it like this to cut. That's just my newfound tool. Anyone else?
This is Joseph. One of my favorites is my double-sided frying pan. So I cook over easy eggs in it, but I get the most perfect eggs every single time because I crack an egg, fry it on one side, and I can literally flip the entire frying pan and get the best over easy eggs. So, and it's also really great with my fish. So if I'm doing blackened fish, I can, not make a mess of my kitchen by just flipping the whole entire pan instead of just the individual piece of fish or the over easy eggs. So that's my favorite.
I love this. I mean, I think, we really learn to adapt and we find things that work for us. We do have a few more minutes. I like to kind of just ask the audience, do we have any other questions that we like to, ask Joe or any panelists before we end?
I just want to give a shout out to our fearless leader, Helene, and to Joda. This is really kind of pioneering stuff we're doing here, leading the way for NASW on this. So just want to give you guys a shout out. Just having a meeting like this with all the assistive technology is a major step forward. And this is the floor, and the ceiling will hit it over the next years.
Thank you, Alex. And you know what? You helped with this too. You encouraged us to, reach out to Joe, and you made this happen too. So thank you.
That's what I was going to say. Thank you to everyone that does an event. People always ask me, how did GAD get so big and all of that? And all I say is, there's two things. One is it tapped a nerve that is massive. So if you think that it's only the 1.2 or 1.3, depending on the statistics you read, people with disabilities, it's much bigger than that. So the community is massive, but more importantly than that, it's the community of people that are doing events, that are raising awareness, that are being thought leaders like Helene and like Alex and our panelists. These are the people that makes the difference, because the two of us, Jennison and I, we couldn't have done any of this alone. It's really the leadership.
It is a team effort, and it's a great community to be a part of. It really is.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you so much again, Joe. We're so honored to have you with us, kind of open this door for us, and hopefully we'll see you again. But Joe, can I ask, if people have questions that kind of come up after this webinar, how can they reach you?
I am at Joe Devon on virtually anything that you want to, like. You can find me on LinkedIn or any of the social media at JoeDevon, pretty much anywhere. So just reach out to me that way.
All right. And again, before we end, please remember we do have our next meeting, May 16th. Reach out to Helene or any of us, Helene's email. Joseph, do you think you can maybe post that really quick again so people can kind of take a look at that really, really quickly again? And if you are interested, this is recorded, right, Helene? And we can send this out, or it'll be posted.
Yes, you'll send out the recording to all registrants.
Great, great. And I'm hoping, I'm just saying this without anybody's consent, but are we able to start maybe like a share doc or something that we can share with our audience or whoever's interested in all the links and all of the cool adaptive things that we have discovered to share amongst everybody? Yeah, let's be a pioneer to start this.
That's what we're going to. Well, we can send it out with in our follow-up email. Some of those links that we shared and resources. Thank you, everyone. We loved having you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Hey.
Thank you.